This morning, I'm going to be talking about psychic energy and healing. The irony is that these Sunday talks are, and the titles and the themes for the talks are usually selected 2 or 3 months ahead of time. This is how appropriate, especially now. Psychic energy and healing. I'm going to start with the end of my notes and then go to the beginning. And what I'll be talking about basically is what is psychic energy according to Agni Yoga, and then how we can increase our psychic energy and use it for healing. So, my end note. With psychic energy, nothing can enter into you. For example, Mother Teresa. Mother Teresa had tons of psychic energy, and never anything ever entered her. Because of her love and intuitive qualities, they were so expanded, she was almost a savior. She was close to taking the 4th initiation, to being an arhat. She was very advanced. That was her power, her psychic energy. So I recommend this coming week to remember this. Think about Mother Teresa, psychic energy. If you've ever been in Calcutta, where she lived, you know the only way to survive in that community was with your psychic energy. There is such a difference between living a mundane life, believing in mundane values, and living a life of spirituality. Living a life of spirituality is when your spirit is stronger than your personality. When you listen to that inner voice that tells you what to do and what not to do. This is not the conscience. That's something different. People who have a conscience are just opening up to their soul. That inner voice is the voice of the solar angel. It is the presence of your higher self. The higher self has no obstructions, no karma, it is not controlled by glamours and illusions. It's not controlled by fearful news. It's not controlled by CNN and MSNBC and statesmen and heads of country. It's pure energy. We can receive pure energy from listening to that inner presence. This is how Mother Teresa survived. But we live in a society today where we become dependent on the media. We become dependent on television and the New York Times and Huffington Post and the Washington Post and so on and so forth. And where these elements are obviously needed for world news, a disciple goes way beyond that. If you're a disciple, you're going to listen to that inner presence. So what is psychic energy? In Agni Yoga, psychic energy is known as primary energy. So this is important for our terminology and understanding of this nomenclature that is born out of Agni Yoga. Because why? Psychic energy has so many definitions according to Webster's dictionary, which I did not look up. I'm just assuming. So Agni Yoga says, now wait a minute, I want to tell you what psychic energy is. And so it tells us that psychic energy is the primary energy. So we don't even have to talk about psychic energy per se, but we need to know that psychic energy is the primary energy, which fuels our life. So it is a primary energy. Now the nice thing about primary energy is that it has differentiations. The primary energy has differentiations. So primary energy includes all these differentiations. I don't want to get into all the minutiae of it, so I can just tell you these are words that you read in Agni Yoga, that Parafohat is part of primary energy, which is part of psychic energy. Fohat is part of the primary energy and part of psychic energy. And these differentiations of primary energy are all explained in the Agni Yoga books. So there's no need to really get into it this morning. The same psychic energy is manifested as life force. So the more psychic energy we have, the more life force, the more creative energy we have in our whole being. What is interesting, as we are told in Agni Yoga, is that this life force is diffused everywhere in the form of prana, which we breathe in. We breathe in prana. As we're breathing in prana, we're breathing in the life force. As we're breathing in the life force, we're breathing in this primary energy. Fire and psychic energy are inseparable because psychic energy is the quality of fire, and fire is life. If we have no fire, if we have no heat in our body, we have no life. Well, that was pretty. So psychic energy is everything. Psychic energy, being the primary energy, lies at the foundation of the manifested world. In the context of Agni Yoga and current physics, matter is composed of 99.999% of energy. And we call this energy light. Especially in Agni Yoga, there is only one element, and that is spirit-matter. Spirit-matter. We could accurately rename that as energetic matter. See, so the more energy we have, the more spirit we have. Again, think about Mother Teresa. Think about Helena Rourke. As I was sitting back in my little chair this morning during meditation, Blavatsky came into my consciousness. I rarely think about Blavatsky. I thought, okay, so she's another person that we need to acknowledge. That great spiritual leader had psychic energy, primary energy. Talk about a life force. There's hundreds of books written about her biography. And every single book, I was thinking of that one book that was written by Cranston on the biography of Blavatsky, which is probably one of the best books I've ever read about her life. Life force is what describes her life. When you read about Nicholas and Helena Rourke, We've all met Torquem Saradarian, or most of us have met Torquem Saradarian. Look at their life. Look at the traumas that they lived through, the world war that they've lived through, the Black Plague that they lived through. Because of that primary energy. Not because of following the news, CNN and MSNBC and so on and so forth. Energetic matter. Energy now this is really, really important if you're taking notes. Energy cannot be conveyed from one place to another without some sort of carrier. For example, the teacher sends psychic energy to your higher self, which is then sent as inspirational energy to your heart. That energy is going into your heart. So the teacher sends us psychic energy. That psychic energy is being sent to our higher self. That energy then is sent as inspirational energy that goes to our heart. If you have studied the teaching, you know that the heart is multidimensional. It's not just our physical organ. We have an etheric heart. We have a heart center in the astral body. We have a heart center in the mental body. So all of this psychic energy being sent from the teacher to the higher self is activating all of these heart centers with inspirational energy. Now, this is going to be a stupid question. How inspired are you when you listen to today's news? Exactly. So this message that the teacher sends us that is inspirational, it is psychic energy, will have so much of a positive benefit. It affects the nature of our heart and can heal us. It's like we don't embrace this until, like, all right, we listened to a talk this morning and we become inspired. And then we talk to people who don't understand psychic energy. They hear the word Agni yoga, well, that's something she's into, you know. Okay, let's stand out, you know, to our friends and our family members and those that don't know about this. Say, how did Mother Teresa live? How did she survive? Go to videos and look at the kind of life those that live in Calcutta live. What kind of lifestyle do they have? Say, how did she survive? She was just a human being, like we are. Hey, it's primary energy, it's psychic energy, it's spiritual energy. That's how we live. Perhaps a more concrete example about psychic energy would be when you burn your hand at the cooking stove while grabbing a handle of a hot saucepan. That's fire. The metal of the saucepan has conveyed, here's for you scientists, has conveyed the molecular excitation we call heat from the flame to your hand. The more psychic energy you have, the more heat you have, the more fire you have. That fire is the life force. The point is this: a flow of psychic energy, which is a flow of subtle, matter, undetectable to our physical senses, can still produce an effect. At a distance, with no seeming disturbances in between the location from which the psychic energy is being directed and the site where the effect becomes evident. Remember I said you have to have a carrier, right? So psychic energy and crystals. Psychic energy has crystals. These crystals travel through our nerve channels. Now, this is a science of how this primary energy works through our entire system. These crystals travel through the nerve channels, and we can use these crystals, this psychic energy, to direct the crystals to various parts of our body to regenerate them. And we don't need Blue Cross and Blue Shield to do this. Striving is instrumental to building this primary energy, this psychic energy. If you're a couch potato, you don't need psychic energy. Even less than when Mom and Dad were alive, because we have remotes now. We don't have to get up and change the channels, right? So if you're a couch potato, if you just sit in your couch and watch TV all day, you don't need psychic energy. You're on your way out anyway. Striving is how we increase our psychic energy. It is during striving that the tension of psychic energy creates these crystals. It's the tension of psychic energy as a result of striving that creates these crystals, which then line the nerve channels. Striving generates psychic energy, this primary energy, which creates crystals that can be directed to various parts of your body to regenerate these various parts. Helena Rourke states, psychic energy as the primary energy is the very elixir of life. See, if you believe this, you're going to start living it. If it's just an intellectual something or other that keeps you entertained, then you have no experience. And when you have no experience and you only have the intellectual knowledge and someone challenges you, then you doubt. You're doubting these great people. You're doubting Mother Teresa. You're doubting Blavatsky. You're doubting the Rourkes. Psychic energy is the very elixir of life. We can learn how to use psychic energy also through concentrated thought and willpower. Gradually, the field of humanity will learn how to focus their thoughts on certain parts of their etheric body and transmit their psychic energy to that part for healing. Now, if you have Torkham's book, New Dimensions of Healing, or the esoteric approach to healing, there's so many exercises in there that will help you develop your understanding of what I've just said, to focus your thoughts upon certain parts of your etheric body and then transmit that psychic energy to those parts for healing. So instead of running to the grocery store and those empty shelves, find one of those exercises and stay home and begin to practice the exercise to strengthen your body. It is best and safest to focus psychic energy to your etheric body. Why? Because the physical body is the shadow of your etheric body. Your physical body will then become charged with psychic energy, according to the charges you have introduced into the etheric body. Now, how is this done? It's done through what we call the nadis. And I'm going to be talking a little bit about the nadis during our conference this week in one of my lectures. But we could say the nadis are these little tubes that take the energy, the primary energy, from these centers in the etheric body into the glands and organs of our physical body. So there is an incredible exchange of activity and energy and creativity and inspiration and healing taking place as a result of our practicing these exercises and so forth. It's so beautiful. For example, we are told we should exercise from around 30 minutes a day. Walking is the most wonderful exercise to generate psychic energy into your etheric body. Then this energy will charge your physical body. Then during the day when you feel exhausted, these crystals of psychic energy are going to nourish your nerves and your blood and recharge you. Isn't this just amazing teaching? It is so amazing. It's so incredibly powerful. We're told that the higher part of our solar plexus is also related to psychic energy. The higher part of our solar plexus can be used for psychic healing. As the solar plexus absorbs this psychic energy, it begins to rotate. The solar plexus begins to rotate. As the psychic energy accumulates in the solar plexus will then distribute the energy to all the centers in your etheric body, especially those centers that are showing sign of depletion. When the psychic energy is sent to certain destinations from your solar plexus, see, this is getting a little bit wordy and a little bit more complex, but it's nice to know the process that's going on. We don't have to practice that formula. It's just automatically done. So then it goes to the surface of our aura, and then from the aura it travels through space in a spiraling moment, as if drilling this space with a beam of fire. Now you're protecting your environment. The fusion of psychic energy with the physical and etheric bodies for an ordinary person takes place through the action of the solar plexus. This is just the actions of an average, normal, unaware person. Now, for advanced people, illumined people, it is the heart center that creates the fusion of psychic energy with the physical and etheric bodies, not the solar plexus. The heart center. And for even still more advanced people, the eyes, your eyes, act as devices of fusion. That energy is then directed to specific destinations, whether to another person, to a group, nation, or humanity as a whole. But this must be real. You cannot pretend to direct psychic energy to others through your eyes. Sometimes people think they can do this, and What they are doing in reality is directing negative energy in the form of vanity and ego. And what happens then in this process, negative crystals are released. Joy and aspiration and striving. Joy, aspiration, and striving. Joy, aspiration, and striving. Release the crystals of psychic energy and vitalize your whole body. Joy, aspiration, and striving. When joy is released, it serves as a transmitter of the currents of psychic energy. Your heart, when your heart is filled, your heart centers are filled with psychic energy. It resembles a small sun with rings of 12 colors. Each color is a ring that registers impressions from the far-off worlds. I don't listen to people of fear. I just want you to know that. I'm sick of it. I do not listen to people of fear because they're going to make me sick. And they're going to plug up my circuit of intuition and psychic energy and inspiration and joy. And that prevents me from registering impressions from far off worlds. So I get a little angry about it. It's like, take your fear, take your opinions, your bias, and so forth, and give them to others if you want, but don't give them to me. I don't need it. Isn't this interesting to think about? This is why the heart is emphasized so strongly in the teaching. The great teacher says to guard and protect your heart. Walk away from people that are trying to instill fear in you. I mean, we're going to use common sense. If your intuition, if that inner voice says, stay home, then stay home and don't go to the grocery store. Stay home. Not because the president tells you something nobody ever knows what he's going to say. Right? One thing today and another thing tomorrow. Or even your favorite journalist, let it be your inner guidance. And then you better acknowledge and honor that inner guidance with joy and aspiration and striving. This is how we guard and protect our heart, especially in those conditions when we are almost forced to take actions that are heartless. The teaching explains that if the sphere of psychic energy around the heart center decreases and the supply of psychic energy is exhausted, that person enters the path of death. But if through a fiery stimulus the heart is recharged, the person enters the path of resurrection. Resurrection is caused when psychic energy goes through all the atoms and cells of the body and makes them aflame. Master Moria says this, and it's from Fiery World, Volume 3, paragraph 416. He instructs psychic energy penetrates all tissues, establishing equilibrium throughout the organism. During sickness, psychic energy flows away from a certain center, weakening the function of the glands. Psychic energy is then impelled to those centers which are able to support and maintain equilibrium. The glands depend so much upon psychic energy. Swelling of the glands may be explained as an ebbing of psychic energy. The weaker the flow of psychic energy, he says, the greater the swelling of the glands. Because the physical development of being affirmed without control. Therefore, all growths up to cancer can be attributed to the ebbing of psychic energy. Spiritual equilibrium can help to eradicate many illnesses. The more prolonged the ebbing of psychic energy, the more malignant will be the disease. Again, that's from Fiery World, Volume 3, paragraph 416. Torgrim Serdarian, he wrote about discipleship classes in monasteries. He explained that in those classes, they would say that a disciple must be really healthy, because discipleship is like preparing your horse, and you're going to go 30 days and nights with that horse, and that horse is not going to be tired. If it is necessary, he is not even going to drink or eat. The horse is your personality. The disciple must be really healthy. So we are equipping our personality with the best energy and health possible so that we, as a disciple, can carry the message of what? Of who? The hierarchy. The teaching of the hierarchy around the world. To carry this message around the world, you need the best health that is possible. To have brightness, intelligence, flexibility, and creativity. You understand why we are so passionate about the teaching? It's so powerful. It's so beautiful. Okay, now. A withdrawal or depletion of your psychic energy is often caused by the attack of hostile forces. If you cannot see hostile forces at work around the entire planet, then you're blind. And you're being sucked into the aura of the masses. If you see this happening, think of Mother Teresa. This depletion of psychic energy can also be the result of actions taken against our own conscience or against that inner guidance. Hostile forces use the tactics of fear, and fear makes our psychic energy withdraw from particular glands that are negatively influenced by fear, and once depleted of psychic energy, causes health problems. Again, just let me reiterate that we want to listen to that inner presence. We're going to follow the guidance of that inner presence, not the guidance of fear. Hostile forces can weaken the psychic energy by projecting psychic poison to an individual through their fear, through slander, through malice and treason, generating the poison in such a way that it eventually reaches the person and is going to weaken that person. But if we are awake, if we are alert, as the teaching instructs us, we can then repulse those poisonous arrows and send them back to their owners. So when you feel an arrow coming from me, it's not because I don't like you. It's because I don't want to lose psychic energy. I don't want to be influenced by your fear and stupidity. The only way to fight the assaults of hostile forces is to increase your striving. Increase your striving. Abide in light and devote yourself more sincerely to meditation and prayer. With right diet, right thinking, and spiritual striving, the heart will again collect a great amount of psychic energy and feed the glands which were depleted of psychic energy. Here's a simple little story. I have a parrot. I'm its second mom. And she's really been down the last few days. Normally, she has this routine. When I go into the kitchen with 3 dogs to prepare their special meals twice a day, she comes over and she has this whole kitchen counter that's hers now. She has claimed it. And I always I have the special popcorn with seeds in it I give her, and then little seed balls. And so she's sitting there eating normally, and then what she doesn't eat, she throws on the ground for the dogs to eat. It really is so entertaining. Well, the last couple of days she hasn't been doing that. I thought, what the heck's going on with her? So I bought some of those carrots with the greenery, on the end that we used to just take for granted when I was a kid, and we'd pull the carrots out of the ground. And so I cut those carrots, I cleaned them up and cut them into little pieces. And she just devoured these. It's like they're not these little, puny little carrots in a plastic bag that I was giving her, These were like nutritious, smelled good. Oh, it's just wonderful. And now she's back playing with the dogs again. But she just, I tell you, it was so fun just to watch her sitting there, and she minces up those carrots. It's so amazing. Anyway, I'll get off to my carrot story, but this is psychic energy. These carrots were full of psychic energy, which went right into her body, and it's like she came alive. It was so fun to see. Abide in light. With right diet, right thinking, spiritual striving, our heart will again collect psychic energy. Fearlessness and fiery aspiration create those conditions in us which, in part, turns the psychic energy into crystals. Crystals are like condensed psychic energy, which can be dissolved and changed into energy again. There are many, the teachings tell us that there are many such crystals in our body which can be dissolved and producing an element that cures many diseases. I know I've said this little story before, that when I read for the first time this book called Commentary on Psychic Energy by Torgrim Sardarian, which you can find on our online bookstore, by the way, and buy it. I was reading through this book, and the more I read about psychic energy, I want some of this. How can I have some of it? It's only taken me 10 years to understand. Took a long time. Yeah, well, some of us are slow. So over time, I began to understand we generate our own psychic energy. We receive psychic energy from the higher self. We receive psychic energy from the teacher. We just have to be, our body has to be in a condition of receptivity that can cure many diseases. The dissolving of these crystals takes place when the fire of the heart touches the crystals during a dedicated heavy labor. Certain herbs, it's not herb, right? It's okay. Certain herbs and oils are wonderful carriers of psychic energy. Lavender, for example, lavender oil is good. It's like, I have this really rogue need that's been bugging me for a few years. Someone gave me some lavender oil the other day, and I put it on the knee, and holy cow, I could not, it was almost instantaneously, I could feel the difference. Lavender oil. Go figure. I have a whole cupboard full of creams now that I can give away. Lavender oil. So lavender oil is good. Plants and herbs are wonderful carriers. Plants and herbs are wonderful carriers of psychic energy. Also rose, wintergreen, eucalyptus, peppermint, all good carriers of psychic energy. Master M tells us that when we are sleeping, to put a cup of hot water near our bed with 15 drops of eucalyptus or peppermint in it until morning. It prevents lots of hostile attacks. Oh gosh, what a great reminder that is. Sandalwood. Now, sandalwood destroys negative thoughts. When I was in India and would walk by some of those straw huts, all I could smell was sandalwood incense. It was almost intoxicating, especially when I was going up the mountain to the Tashiding monastery. The whole monastery, it's just like you could see these puffs of smoke coming out of the monastery, sandalwood incense. Or I would go into the shops in Darjeeling and all I could smell was sandalwood. Some temples day and night burn sandalwood. If you are allergic to sandalwood, the teaching says you must go to the doctor to be checked. Maybe there is a substance in the sandalwood which is causing your membranes to act up. Torquem Serdarian instructed that allergic reaction, in his opinion, and he said, now, don't hold me to this, but we are. He says, because now I can't. He said, Torquem instructed that allergic reaction, in his opinion, was that in the past you used that element so much that now you are saturated with it. Isn't that interesting? Yeah. So I'm going to end the talk this morning the same way I began it. With psychic energy, nothing can enter into you. For example, Mother Teresa, who had tons of psychic energy and never anything ever entered her. Because of her love and intuitive qualities were so expanded, she was almost a savior. And I'll end with that.